So, welcome to this program, Public Speaking for Super Success. And this program is primarily designed for people who are corporate executives, people who are basically running businesses, or anybody who is in the phase of their career where they want to improve their communication skills, especially when it comes to communication skills that are regarding, speaking to a large group. And hopefully this program, if especially if you apply all the lessons that are taught in this program, you are absolutely going to improve your public speaking skills by a huge degree. There are a lot of things that you're going to learn in this program. So you're going to learn the technical part of public speaking also, which is how to construct a great speech and how to deliver a great message, and a lot of things that are regarding the technical aspect of public speaking. You are going to discover that, but you are also going to figure out how you can actually improve your confidence levels when speaking to a large group. Because as we know, the primary problem, the primary reason why a lot of people fear public speaking is because of a lack of confidence. And we are absolutely going to address that also in this course. So let's begin. Okay. So how many of you have heard of this saying? An idea can change your life. How many of you have heard of this? Now, especially if you're in India, you most probably have heard of this because it was a saying in a Vodafone ad where they said, an idea can change your life, right? So the question is, how many of you actually believe in it? How many of you believe that an idea can change your life? Well, the saying is half nonsense because an idea itself cannot change your life. Only the guts to actually implement the idea can. Only the implementation of that idea can actually change your life. And what you are going to actually learn in this program are a bunch of ideas, but you have to remember that it is only when you implement them over a long period of time that they are going to change your life. And we are going to go through a lot of things. We are going to go through a lot of techniques through which you will learn to basically apply these ideas repetitively and improve your public speaking skills. But ultimately, the initiative has to come from you, right? And by the way, for the married men here, it might be a little difficult because they say an idea can change your life, but your wife can change your idea. Right? So anyway, of course, I'm not being serious here. So whether you're married, you're unmarried, you're a man, you're a woman, you're a he, him, you're a she, her, whatever you are, the point here is that it is not just an idea that will change your life. It is the implementation of the idea that will change your life. How to retain what you learn? So how do you actually retain what you learn? Now let me ask you, what percentage of yesterday do you remember? What percentage of yesterday do you actually remember? Typically, when I ask this question in my training programs, people have audacious answers. They say stuff like, we remember 50%, we remember 60%, you know, and what is 50 or 60% of 16 hours? We are not going to count 24 hours. I'm not asking you to remember your dreams. But let's assume you are awake for 16 hours every day. What percentage of yesterday do you remember? Now, many people, like I said, they say 50%, 60%. And I ask them, if you remember 50%, that is 8 hours. So, can you give me a minute by minute account of those 8 hours? Obviously, the answer is you cannot. And the reason you cannot is because our memories are actually very weak. If you actually think about it, there's a very small percentage of yesterday that you actually remember. So there are certain points, there are certain memorable moments from yesterday that you remember, and you use those points, you use those moments to construct the whole day. But if you actually try and remember what portion of yesterday that you actually remember, it is probably going to be less than 1 or 2%. So if you just add up all of the memorable moments from yesterday also that you remember, it is probably going to add up to a maximum of 2 or 3 minutes and not like 50%, not like 8 hours. I hope you all agree, right? So my point is, if you cannot even remember 1 or 2% of what happened yesterday, how do you think you're going to remember the several hours of training that you're going to get in this program? Can you? You cannot. You just cannot. The only way you can do this is if you do what he did. So people from India probably already know what this is. This is a still from the movie Gajni, and this guy is Amir Khan, and his character basically tattooed everything on his body because he suffered from short-term memory loss, and we all basically suffer from memory loss in one way or the other. Like I said, we think we remember everything, but there's a very, very small percentage of yesterday that we remember. From 1 week ago, there's barely even much smaller things that we remember from 1 week ago, and before that, again, there are very, very few selective moments that we remember, and then we all add them up and think that we remember everything. But of course, that is not true. So in order to combat that, you have to do what this guy did, which is what? You have to make tattoos? No, you have to take down notes. You have to take down notes. And remember, even when you try to take down notes, when you try and take down notes, make sure those notes, as far as possible, those notes are taken in an electronic medium. Because if you just write it down physically, then what is going to happen is that after a few days, you are going to throw them in the trash can. So what we are going to do is we are going to basically, uh, you know, try and take down notes, because that is the only way that we are actually going to remember what we learned in this particular program. So now that we have discussed how to retain what you learn, I want to tell you another story by which you can basically learn how to be more open-minded. So there is a story regarding a very um, old and famous guy who was a martial artist, and so basically there was a very old and famous guy who was a martial artist, and he wanted to learn martial arts even more. So he heard of this guy called Bruce Lee. Okay, so he heard of Bruce Lee, and this guy, he decided that let me go to Bruce Lee and let's see what I can actually get to learn from him. So he went to Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee was trying to teach him. But this guy, because he was old and he was conditioned in a certain way, he was finding it hard to basically accept Bruce Lee's new techniques, Bruce Lee's new ideology, the way Bruce Lee was basically teaching a different form of martial arts. He was finding it extremely hard to actually learn from Bruce Lee, because his mind had been conditioned in a very, in a very, very strict way. So what Bruce Lee did was he paused the training and said, "Let's go. Let's have a cup of tea or cup of coffee." So basically, they started having cup of tea, a cup of coffee, whatever. And so Bruce Lee started, what he did was he asked the old man to basically get his cup and he started to pour in more and more coffee. So the more coffee was going in, Bruce Lee basically was pouring more and more coffee. And the guy basically said that, the older guy basically said that, I would like no more coffee. But Bruce Lee basically kept pouring more and more and more coffee. So finally the guy said, how can I have more coffee? The cup is already full. The cup is already full. How can I have more coffee? And what Bruce Lee said was, this is precisely the reason that you cannot learn from me, because your cup is already full. So you have to empty your cup. You have to empty your cup with the old knowledge you have, with the old coffee that you have, that you already have. You have to empty it and you have to fill it with new coffee, because only then you can gain new knowledge, you can gain fresh knowledge. So of course this is basically a story which teaches you that if you want to learn something, there might have been a lot of things that you might have learned in the past, there might have been a lot of things that have been taught to you about public speaking, but I want you for now to get rid of that knowledge. Because if you still have those preconceived notions about what it takes to deliver a great speech, what it takes to be a masterful storyteller, what it takes to be highly confident in a speech, if you still have those preconceived notions from the older stories, the older things that you've learned, there is no way that you can absorb the new knowledge that you're going to get in this program. So for now, I would request you to please empty your cup, get rid of the old knowledge, get rid of all the preconceived notions that you have about public speaking. And for now, empty your cup, empty the slate, and listen with a completely open mind. Because that is the only way that you're going to gain knowledge and you're going to become really great at least what I am going to teach you about public speaking. So empty your cup. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Anubhav Srivastava. I'm basically a business coach and a trainer, and I'm also a keynote speaker. I have done a lot of training, a lot of consulting, and a lot of speeches for over 90 companies from over 20 industries. Over 90 companies from over 20 industries, and this is something that I have been doing for almost 13 years now, and this is basically a source of living for me, public speaking. So I do believe that I'm quite qualified to teach you about this, because when you do public speaking as a profession, you cannot afford to give boring speeches, because if you are giving boring speeches as a profession, then people are not going to call you back. You are not going to be able to make it, at least make a living out of it. So over the last 13 years, I've basically figured out a very strong way in which how you can basically make sure that you can keep your audience engaged. Now that the engagement can be during a short speech, a short keynote speech, a power packed speech, or even if you have to deliver a longer kind of a training, longer kind of a presentation, or even when it comes to boardroom presentations, or even when pitching to certain clients of yours or certain investors, or speaking to your colleagues. So public speaking is something that is going to be really helpful for you, and I have over 13 years of experience in doing that. By the way, I have also created a film called Carve Your Destiny. It is a very inspirational documentary, and it features a lot of very famous achievers on how basically they achieved success. And this documentary also had about 6 to 7 years of work behind it. So my public speaking journey basically got started during this documentary, because there was a lot of speaking, a lot of communication, a lot of speaking on camera that I had to do for this, and a lot of speaking to public, to the masses also. These are some of the pictures from my public speaking events. You can just take a look at this. So this is something that I have been doing for a very, very long time. And these are the list of companies that I have done training for. So if you belong to a company that would also like to have productivity training or sales training or leadership training, then you can contact me at anubhav101@gmail.com. So enough with my introduction and enough with the background about the psychological tactics that are required to basically have in mind before you get started on this course. So what we're going to do now is we are going to start with the course itself. We're going to start with how to become a great public speaker. Stay tuned for the next module where you're going to start learning about how you can incredibly improve your public speaking skills.